So my name is Dennzon Winley from here in Georgetown. I'm 26 years old, no children, no spouse. So the last few years of my life, I've been traveling the world, trying to discover new things, new ways of doing things. I lived for a time in Sierra Leone, West Africa, and then a spell in France. And now I am pursuing my master's degree in global policy at the University of Texas, Austin.
Well, now tell me how you ended up in West Africa. What's that story?
So I tend to tell people I'm an academic, at least in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to pursue development studies. And so what I did, I lived in a village in West Africa, Sierra Leone, for 2 years, figuring out, political economy, how things actually work when it comes to economics and development politics.
Wow. And so why did you decide, were you born here or?
I was born in Georgetown, Georgetown Memorial. And really, I was here all my life until I went to college in 2013.
So, I mean, all these travels you did in West Africa and other places, why did you decide to come back home?
Because when I was abroad doing work in different communities, I continually asked myself, all right, you're here, you're immersing yourself in a foreign culture, you're trying to be helpful, but how can you be helpful to your own community? Mm-hmm. Georgetown is home. Okay. What I'm essentially wanting to do is combine my love for governance and politics and lend my expertise of sorts, my energy, my drive to making Georgetown a much better place, particularly for people my age. Georgetown has a brain drain that has been affected by brain drain for the past, I don't know how many years. We continually see our population diminish, and that's one of the reasons because young people are leaving. A brain drain in general is when talent leaves a location. And so generally talent is defined as someone young, someone who has knowledge of a special skill. It doesn't mean that they're going off to college, because you can have knowledge in your trades, finance, etc. But Georgetown's problem is that people who are college educated, they go to school, but they don't come back. That's a brain drain. Yeah.
How do you get them back? How do you keep them here or get them back?
You change, first and foremost, the political situation, because a lot of sentiment that I've heard concerning the politics of Georgetown, there's too much of a good old boy system. And so there's a good old boy system, and then there's a gridlock that occurs between the different sectors of town. And so what this campaign is essentially trying to do, bridge that gap so that, one, we can say to younger people, all right, there is some activity here. If you want to come home, you want to start a business here, you want to contribute to the local economy, you can do so, because on the horizon, not just for myself, even after myself, I win or lose, things will continue to change because we are going to be the capitalists.
You did write a letter that we published a couple of weeks ago, and you talked about the business industry in Georgetown. We'll get your thoughts about Liberty still in a minute, but first, you talked about pay for employees, and basically you said, $8 an hour, if that's what a business can afford. That's kind of a joke. But Georgetown is, especially Front Street, not the Walmarts and the Food Lions, but the mom and pops on Front Street, they can't afford $15 an hour. So are you saying they should not be in business if they can't afford $15 an hour?
No, and I think it's important to draw a distinction, as you said, between the small businesses that exist, say, on Front Street and on the West End, versus large corporations such as Walmart. Because those large corporations are and should pay wages that people can live off of. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to small businesses, my aunt owns a small business, and so I've been blessed to follow behind her and get to know, how things actually are. And you're right, $15 may not be suitable for a lot of small businesses, but there needs to be some kind of happy medium where, they offer and incentivize pay for young people, anyone of any age demographic, to work in a restaurant or in a small shop. Because as anyone is, I am very pro small business. I understand what it means to realize a particular dream and to open your business, and you want to see it thrive, and I'm with you. But I'm expressing the sentiment of a lot of people in my age group, who remain in Georgetown or surrounding areas, and they don't want to work for minimum wage. That's just not my thinking. That is the general sentiment. But that's where I am on that one.
You mentioned something very interesting in that letter that if you're in the drug trade, I mean, you mentioned $200 an hour. that you could make doing that. Now, of course, there's no business that can compete with that. So, what was your point with that? What was your point in bringing that up?
The point of that is to highlight a real problem for policymakers, because it's no secret that the youth in particular, some of them may engage in selling drugs. And that's because they look at jobs that are paying minimum wage and they're saying, why would I accept this when there's a market for drugs? As immoral as it is, it exists. And so that's a central question for aspiring policymakers. You know, how do we attract jobs to the area that, one, give people an opportunity to make a living wage, and two, would disrupt, you know, dirty networks such as the drug trade that take our kids back so that they can earn a respectable living. And I'm sorry, I mean, it may not sound glorious, but it is indeed a true problem for all aspiring policymakers that we must reckon with.
What could Georgetown City Council, though, do about that? I mean, is this more of a federal or state problem, or is it something City Council can do something about?
Well, yes, all political problems, you know, given devoluted system of government, you know, powers are shared. There are things that the state can do, such as raise the minimum wage. We don't have to wait on the federal government to raise the minimum wage. South Carolina can do it on its own. But also, the federal government offers grants. So there's money out there to be had. As far as what City Council can do, City Council's primary role is to make the municipality conducive for business growth, you know, to welcome people in so they can establish their business, small and large alike. Secondly, what City Council do is also hire a grant writer, because again, there's a lot of money out there, and I tried to write a grant myself. I'm not quite there yet, so it is a very special skill. And so City Council, one, make the environment conducive for business growth, and then two, hire a grant writer so that we can actually go after these funds.
So I'm going to give you a chance now. They talked about Liberty Steel. I saw a little blurb about Liberty Steel. You mentioned that. What's your thoughts about what should happen with the property?
First and foremost, I have to state that it is private property. That is a private enterprise, right? But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to preach to people, I believe the closure is inevitable. One, given the situation with the coronavirus, it did slow down a lot of international trade and supply lines. Yes, it did disrupt it. But going deeper, if you keep up with international financial times and news coming out the UK, the largest financier, Liberty Steel, backed out, and they finance over 60% of their operations. And the owner of the group, Liberty Steel, he's in big legal trouble in the United Kingdom. And so that does not bode well for jobs there nor here. You know, I am very much pro-job, of course, but I believe we've reached a point now where the city must begin to plan for a future post-Liberty Steel. And perhaps I think this should have been done some time ago, since the first closure. But now what we're proposing, we have something called Georgetown Reimagined 2030. And so what's going to happen with that site once it's clean, rezoned, and all that stuff? We're proposing it becomes a center for research and development. Why? Because research receives billions of dollars per year. South Carolina is the home of Boeing, a Boeing plant, BMW. Why not try to get some of those subsidiaries down here to Georgetown? You know, if they want to do research and development, they can hire local talent. This is bringing back the young people who went off to school to learn finance, accounting, business, data analytics. Also for those who are skilled in mechanics and a trade. Hire young people that would then pay livable wages. That is our plan. Another part of our Georgetown Reimagined 2030. The city must partner with the school district or Georgetown Tech and any other public or private educational entities to better prepare our children for a workforce that's for the future, but for a future that's really already here, right? And so I understand that city government is not responsible for everything. It does not have overreaching powers, but there are certain things that the city should be much more proactive in.
Now, when you say research and development, I mean, what if you had your wish and it happened? What would they be researching on that property?
Well, again, that's why in the letter I said public or private entities. So, say for example, public institution, the University of South Carolina, Clemson. I believe one of them wanted to plant a community college there a few years ago, or they told with the idea. So with that, again, research generally means you're funding projects to see what works for like say mechanic, engineering, robotics and all that stuff. What we're experiencing with the coronavirus and the vaccine, this stuff took a lot of research in plants. And so that is the overarching vision. If we can make that site marketable for industries that again come in, they're research based and they're able to pay a living wage. And most importantly, I'm just going to say it plainly, I don't care to see residential homes, condos, or hotel on the waterfront, because once that happens, when prices go up and the gentrification begins, they start to push into traditional neighborhoods. I am 100% against that, and I have no problem staying there.
So you see, if houses, hotels went up on the Liberty Steel property, the West End would suffer.
Yeah, without a doubt, because the process the process has already begun. But once the steel mill goes, and certain people get their wishes of establishing condos or whatnot on the waterfront, someone like me is not going to be able to afford to live on the waterfront. And I've had relatives who worked on the beach in condos, hotels, all their lives, and I've seen what that does. You're keeping people a permanent underclass when you don't take the advantage of remodeling certain social economic conditions.
But do you see, and this may or may not be an example, but if hotels, condos, townhouses, or whatever come to Liberty Steel property, the West End will happen like happened at Pawleys Island, with the houses that were there, decades and decades ago, gone now, or the people being taxed, the taxes going up so high on the properties that they can't afford to live there anymore.
You gotta get out.
Yeah.
And that's when people worship the market, but that's when the market becomes too controllable. So once that happens, property taxes are going to go up, natural property value is going to go up, and there are already people looking at the empty lots that are a result of heirs property. And so once you get over that legal hurdle, you start snatching them up. Once that thing goes, it's on. The gentrification is on. And this is happening all across the United States. And this is also one of the reasons why I decided to run for city council, because it's happening here in Georgetown as well. And so it's like what I'm saying, we can have major redevelopment, no problem. I am for new industry, new opportunities, but what we are not going to have is gentrification that displaces traditional communities. If I'm elected, not on my watch.
Oh, in-person meetings for Georgetown City Council. We still don't have in-person meetings. It's been over a year. What do you think should happen with that?
What I'm seeing, and I think people are missing, we have some vulnerable members who sit on city council, and so what I'm thinking is that's the main reason why they choose to have it online. But as far as the future, we have reached a point in this country where the vaccines are being rolled out, okay, even though vaccination rates are going down, please get vaccinated. We are going to have to figure out how to move forward with the coronavirus, because as the medical professionals are pointing to, the various diseases multiply all the time. So coronavirus has a few variants, and it will continue to reproduce itself. So we have to figure out how to live with the virus, and that includes what can City Hall must come up with a plan to reopen to the public. I get the concerns, and the concerns are very legitimate for all employees, all elected officials. But going forward, we have to bring back public comments, and we have to open the meeting back up eventually. I agree with you 100% on that front.
Now, as far as the budget goes, we're looking at a $36 million budget for the 21-22 year. Have you looked at it? Do you think there's places that need to be cut? Do taxes need to be raised? I mean, what's your thoughts about what you've been able to see so far?
Well, number one, taxes do not need to be raised. Everyone is struggling. It doesn't matter if you have a small business or you work for someone, everyone is struggling. So raising taxes in the foreseeable future is out of the question. But as far as specifics, I looked over the budget one time, but I'm not ready to publicly comment on, say, what needs to go, what needs to stay. As time goes on, if I'm elected, then I will have the opportunity. to get much more involved in that process. But what I do know, a significant amount of money is coming to municipalities from the stimulus package, and that President Biden has his way. If the infrastructure bills pass, more money will be coming to municipalities, along with the American Families Act. So, in the interim, I agree with the approach that City Council is taking out. You know, they're going to department heads. You know, do you need this? Can this stay? What needs to go? Because under South Carolina law, you must have a balanced budget, right? So I agree with what the approach the City Hall is taking right now.
Okay. And as far as roads concerned, of course, most of the roads in the city are state roads, so there's not a lot that the city can do. But should the city be putting more pressure on the state to say, you know, hey, Queen Street's had this hole in the middle of it for, you know, a year.
Yeah.
What should the city be doing to try to get some of the emergency improvements done and then the regular maintenance done?
Well, the role of any elected official is to communicate with other elected officials. So yes, to your first question, city council members, the mayor, should be putting pressure on Columbia, authorities to Columbia, DOT, to the governor. All right, this is a problem that has existed here for so long, not just Queen Street, but across even the West End. You know, state roads just aren't the best in the United States. And globally, well, across the state, there seems to be this lag in confronting the problem. You know, they're reluctant to raise money. Granted, we're in a pandemic right now, emergency right now, but before they were still reluctant to impose a tax or raise money to actually fix the roads. And once they did, they said it's going to take over 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so part of it is like, yes, more pressure needs to be applied, but then on the other half, there's this lag on the part of Columbia for whatever reason. But absolutely, City Council should definitely place more pressure on authorities.
Let me ask you about your Facebook page. You've got a lot of stuff on your Facebook page. Some of it written by you, some of it you're just sharing, or other people write on your page. So not everything, you know, is by you. But there's a lot of racial issues discussed on your page, and a lot of I don't know if the word is anger, but or concern about, you know, white people, stuff that white people have done over the years. And my only question about that is, if you are elected, and if Carol Giroux is elected as mayor, will you be able to work with her?
I'm able to work with anyone. Mm-hmm. But what people need to understand about me, I don't put up with certain things. If I see something that's going on that's historically rooted, such as racism, inequality, I will speak up on it. Mm-hmm. There are just certain patterns in this country that exist. You know, certain situations happen that are not the first time, such as police shootings, certain comments by elected officials. Those things are not new. Mm-hmm. And so with my generation, we're very vocal about those issues, right? Now sometimes they may not come out like being diplomatic or possessing tact, and I try to always remain diplomatic. But if I sense there's an issue, or someone saying something that's out of line, out of pocket, they need to be addressed, I will do so without hesitation.
Now you grew up in Georgetown, and you live in a lot of other places, and you see what Georgetown is today. Is there a racial issue in Georgetown today?
Let's define racial issue.
Compared to what it was when you were growing up, or where other places you lived?
Because when we say racist or racial issue, people think, you know, someone has to be in your face, someone has to be next foaming at the mouth, racial slurs. And it's not just that. The deeper definition being, you know, again, certain historical inequalities that existed coming from public policies such as intentional redlining, funneling people into specific jobs that don't pay well. Those are historically rooted in the United States. And is it rooted here in Georgetown? Yes, it is. Because you can cross Fraser Street and you can see the historical inequalities that built this town. They are readily visible, right?
Now when you say see, you're talking about one side of Fraser is multi-million-dollar 2-3-story houses. The other side is West End with 1-story, you know, houses. That some of them in not great shape. Is that what you mean when you say that?
Exactly. Georgetown County, this is one of the seat of the rice capital of the world, right? There's such a thing as old money. All that stuff exists. So with my generation, people complain about wokeism and all that, but the true purpose is to bring attention to these historical issues that continue to plague communities all across the United States. If you're white and you're wealthy, I'm not calling you a racist. I'm not saying that you vote a particular way. All I'm wanting to do is have the conversation on how we can create equal opportunity for everybody. You know, people look at some of my some of the things I write or I say, and they go, "Oh, he's a racist," or they automatically write me off as someone. Okay, well, he's too liberal. Well, look, you want to live in peace. I want to live in peace. You want to be able to pursue your dreams. I would love African Americans, other minorities, everybody to pursue their dreams.
So what do you want the people to know, why they should vote for you? You got 5 people running, only 3 can win in advance to November. Why should you be one of those 3?
Well, certainly because I present a new perspective on things. Again, my experiences after traveling abroad, being immersed in academia, all of that stuff is good and dandy, but it means nothing until you're ready to aid your community in advancing. And so again, when we touch on matters of inequality, opportunity, historical wrongs, my generation is not shying away from it anymore. Because every American has to live in the United States. And if I'm able to create a situation, an environment where people can thrive and we can have conversations, we can welcome new industry that does not keep a certain people in underclass, I'm here for it. You know, I'm not the boogeyman. You know, people, they're focused on social media and talk shows all the time, and people such as myself get a bad rap. But that's not the case, because I'm here to help you. I'm here to help me, because we all have to live in peace and harmony. That's it.